By the way, when you said, ENiGMA, when you said, we're clearing our throats and whatnot, I was just imagining you guys, like, going through high pitches. I'm like, oh, da, da, da. And then, Flames going like, a British star's a soaring sword. Something like that.
We're mostly sort of, winding down for the day for me and Neo, because we've been out.
Hey, you missed Flames' radio voice he was doing a minute ago.
Really? Oh, wait. Flames, let us hear that. Okay, let me hear that. How's your radio voice?
It was just something like 64.81 KFM Radio Flames.
Hello, fine people. Welcome to another episode of Nexus Esports Edition. With us, the three founders of Exodus Gaming Team from United Kingdom. Okay, first let's go person by person. ENiGMA, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad today, thank you very much.
Okay. Then we follow with Nico, or Neo, I should say.
Hello.
Hello. And we have our illustrious Flames that hasn't slept in 24 hours apparently, so I hope you don't pass out during the interview.
Greetings. Yes, I'm wide awake, I promise.
Let's go through the beginning of Exodus Gaming Team.
Well, I guess it all started sort of, I think it was 2006 or 2007. I joined up to do a gaming course. I became a computer game development student. Flames transferred from another college a couple of weeks into the course, and he had a love for PC gaming, and I had a love for PC gaming, and there was a few of us that kind of formed a group that sort of like we all bonded and became really firm friends. And I was already dating Neo, so I introduced Flames to Neo when he came over to help me build my then new rig, which is now very old. We all sort of bonded and played a whole bunch of LAN games. I can't remember what game we played. I think it was Half-Life 2 Deathmatch.
Half-Life 2 Deathmatch.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Perfect World back in the day also.
Yeah, there was a lot of Perfect World as well, back in the day. And we played on all of those sorts of games around at my place, and sort of all hit off from there, I guess.
I never tried that. Was it a good MMO?
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with anyone who says that is a good MMO.
No,
it's basically the exact opposite of a good MMO.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's basically the USP for the game is just to take as much money from the players as possible. One of our other friends from college, when we were game design students, was playing it, and at the time we didn't know how bad his decisions were on games. And he recommended it, and we tried it, and we played it for several months. Me and Neo went back to it over a period of a year. We kind of, after 12 months of playing, we're just like, no, this isn't even possible to play unless you pay using like a credit card or something to actually level up, because it's just not that sort of game.
What? You have to pay to level up?
Yeah, well, it was sort of like, by the time you got to level sort of 80 or 90, they had a cash shop that gave you like extra EXP and these things that were called hierograms, which basically regenerated your mana and your health and stuff for you. But it was so hard, the pots, like health pots and mana pots that you could get in the actual game, were so weak that they didn't actually work if you were trying to play it seriously. So you had to use hierograms to play. So you either had to just play it for the social side and be casual, or pay lots of money to actually play the game properly. So we kind of knocked that on the head pretty soon after that we noticed that.
Going back to the story of you guys, this is how you guys met. How did Exodus Gaming Team how was it born? Who had the first inkling though, like the idea of like, oh wait, this is something that we love. We're studying gaming. We're within the gaming industry in terms of careers. So who had the first idea?
I guess me and Flames, whilst he was over at my house one night, we were playing a load of games. We had this idea of, it was like an elitist gaming group. When I say elitist, it was like we were only friends with people that were elitist with games, that weren't sort of accepting of any noobish behaviour. And we made a gaming group called Owns You, which obviously all of our friends joined from college, and then their friends joined, and we all played on various different games together. I remember some Left 4 Dead playing and stuff like that whilst we were all. And then we ran Knights of Salvation, or COS Guild, which was a multi-gaming guild that we played in Perfect World and Aeon. And then EXG, we stopped doing those. They kind of sort of fell into disrepair. We ended up going to university at different times, and we lost contact with each other a bit.
All right.
And we all met back up, sort of properly and had a lot of fun sort of several months later. But we were so busy studying that we didn't actually do anything like with any sort of idea of having a gaming group. And then December last year, I believe it was, Exodus started taking form, some sort of from the ashes of Knights of Salvation and Owned You, under sort of the name that me and Neo called it, which was Project Evolution. And we mentioned it to Flames in January, and he was sort of like loved it and was on board with it. So we ran with that idea, and we fully launched it in February this year.
So, in terms of the idea before Knights of Salvation even was formed, Neo, were you involved in that process as well, or you were?
I've been involved with all of the clans really. Maybe not as one of the really good gamers, but maybe in a more community-related aspect. It was only really when Exodus started that I started doing the important stuff.
No, it's fine. No, I just was wondering. Well, you mentioned that. Well, ENiGMA, you mentioned that you and Flames were playing one night, and you had the idea of starting something. Do you remember the instance? I know it must have been a while from now, but do you remember either ENiGMA or Flames?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember like you were eating cookies while you were playing something, and Flames stopped and said, I have an idea or something. I don't know.
I think at the time we were playing on a game, and I can't remember what it was, but I remember saying, I wish we weren't always stuck with these terrible players. And
generally how it starts.
Yeah, and Flames was just like, yeah, it is a real shame. We should really try and just play with good gamers. And they were like, well, all our friends are good gamers, but they don't know what games we're playing on at the moment. So they're not on Steam, which is what we were on at the time. So I'm guessing it was like Counter-Strike or Half-Life 2 Deathmatch we were on. And so the idea sort of got based around that of sort of creating this elitist gaming group that would only accept friends or friends to friends that we knew were good gamers, because we were sick of playing with terrible people.
What are your goals? What's the Exodus gaming team aiming for?
Well, essentially, we'd like to see, for Exodus as a whole, we would like to see it, grow into something much larger, a really kind of reputable name within esports, and be able to contribute to the competitive gaming community, events, and a nice environment in which players are able to perform at an optimum level. So Exodus might actually serve some purpose, not just being another random community or something, but to strive more for professionalism, excellence, if I dare say so.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I think I'd like to see our teams grow, certainly within the esports scene. Watch as we sort of gain support from sponsors to help support those players within those scenes, and see the whole process unfold, which is what we've been working so hard on for the past months.
Yeah. To be honest, hearing you say this, guys, I mean, it's really exciting news. From having the idea and towards the process of making it official, organizing and making a name for yourselves and hiring players and looking for sponsors and all that activity. How do you guys feel about it? I mean, you're sort of daunted about the task that it's before you. Do you guys feel something? I mean, how was the difference between having the idea and then making the team?
I think for the most part, it actually surprisingly went easier at the beginning. Sort of like, certainly within February, sort of a couple of months ago now, we thought it would be a lot more difficult of certain aspects. Certainly, a lot of gaming has a lot of negativity within it. It's a lot of people have that elitist mentality and have the sort of sort of my balls are bigger than your balls sort of idea about it all. And that was sort of like the general sort of thing that people would always say. But when we started, we had so many applications and so much positive feedback and so many positive words come from gamers within, whether they were hardcore gamers or competitive gamers or even just casual gamers. The response that we had was so positive and whatnot, that I think that fueled us to really push ourselves even harder to get to where we are at this point.
I don't think anyone expected it to be anywhere near as successful as it has been, even at this early stage.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I find it surprising that very early on we had full teams interested in applying, so we were able to take on, say, a full 5-man LoL team and communicate closely with their currently appointed captain, who would then sort of communicate with his team, and we're able to ensure that these guys have everything they need and that we can provide the assistance as and when needed so that they can stick as closely as possible to their training regimen and pursue their competitive gaming careers.
How do you feel that esports, the environment in esports, you guys are obviously from UK, so
yeah,
probably you'll have opinions based on that region. How do you feel the esports environment is in terms of welcoming new gaming teams, or do you guys see that it's there are some areas that are still lacking in terms of because, for example, if we deal with any other kind of physical sports, there's a whole lot of process on creating a team, finding sponsors and whatnot. It's a fairly easy breezy, lemon squeezy process in that sense, or?
Yeah. I think esports, certainly here in the United Kingdom, is extremely limited. To our knowledge, the only sort of event that happens where it sort of promotes any sort of real competitiveness that people go to here in the UK is the Insomnia Festival, which is held by multiplayer game servers. And obviously Dignitas go there and whatnot. But yeah, there's a severe lack of support for players in the United Kingdom that are wanting to play competitively. And for a lot of people that really are serious about playing games as a sport, it kind of forces them to travel abroad to pursue their sort of dreams and their goals, which we see as a real shame. Obviously, coming from a country where football, as we call it over here, as opposed to American football, is so big and popular that a lot of other sports are shadowed by its sort of glory, I guess.
Okay, and before going with the questions that are directed to each of you, because you are three, you're a trio.
Yeah.
I was wondering is there something within the personality that you guys can share in terms of how you work dynamically as the founders of EXG?
I guess sort of I'm sort of like the background guy. I do a lot of the sort of design work and so on. And Neo sort of aids me in that and has really great points, as does Flames. But Flames ultimately is like, he's the machine.
I'm kind of the middle. I like the term machine. I'm the machine. I deal with the players, and I make sure I relay back and forth between management and players. I come from an esports background, not so much the business-oriented background that ENiGMA has experience with, so I'm a bit more on the front line, so to speak.
Nice. So,
Yeah,
okay.
he's a bit like the Terminator in that respect.
Awesome. Well, so we have a Mastermind ENiGMA, we have the Terminator, and Neo, how would you see yourself in time?
I'm like a ninja. You don't see me very often, but I am doing stuff. I'm like secretly doing things no one knows about.
I was going to say you don't see her, but everything's definitely working.
Nice. That's wow.
A lot of behind the scenes stuff that Neo does that really helps the internal workings of Exodus keep going. And in fact, our sponsors, Gamers Platoon, one of the people who own that, who's a gentleman called Cask, actually said to me yesterday that he actually celebrated, because we've been part of Gamers Platoon for a few weeks now, and he'd literally just spotted that Neo had sort of reared her head from the internet and made a post on the on Gamers Platoon's forums, and he was ecstatic that she'd appeared from nowhere. She's very elusive, I guess, as a person.
Nice. Okay, that's interesting. Oh my god, okay. So I'm glad, and you guys, I mean, with the Terminator, the Mastermind, and the Ninja, I guess you guys make a powerful entity, so to speak.
Yeah.
ENiGMA, you said you're sort of like in the backdrops and making sure that everything in managing works. So is that what you bring to the table, or what other things are you responsible within the roles of the team?
I manage a lot of the people that do things like we have reviewers on the website, and they write reviews on games and gaming hardware. And I contribute to that and write reviews as well, but I also ensure that they maintain a high standard. Obviously I discuss with Flames about the teams and so on, and with Neo about teams, and sort of make sure that we're all appointed in sort of like going in the right direction. As well as that, I come from, as Flame said, I come from a sort of approach it as a business, from a business standpoint, and also as a sports coach standpoint for a lot of the players, because with that being a background that I have, I'm able to help out players with anything that they need, such as sort of like nutritional or physical things that they would like to discuss.
Nice. Okay, let's talk about the managing aspect then. How does it work, being within the managing point of view, having a team?
It's sort of like, for the most part, it really is like an alliance between myself, Flames, and Neo. I pride myself on not being a lone wolf, as a sort of like being a manager, and I use that sort of in quotations. I would never sort of make a decision without discussing it with Flames and Neo first. I'm able to take that sort of idea or decision that we've made, sort of like help it grow into a physical form through sort of managing time, helping gain people that can help sort those sorts of things, and obviously doing graphic design and promotional material, which I then feed to the Machine and the Ninja, who sort of like do all of the bits to make those cogs keep turning, discussing things with Flames and Neo, finding out things such as statistics, and discussing with Flames about, because he's our League of Legends division manager, I discussed with him about the League of Legends teams, and we sort of like come up with ways to help those players. With Neo, obviously she sort of like looks after our social medias, and such as our Twitter and our Facebook and our Steam. We sort of like discuss those, and then the ideas that people have put to us or responses, where we then discuss, and then we each go away, and I do a lot of work on those bits. So sometimes it's really, really hectic, and other times it's not quite as hectic, but it's still enough to keep me on my toes.
You mentioned about nutrition, and in terms of that background or experience that you have, or people are not aware of that aspect when they think about esports.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I learned from early on, and I know Flames shares a very similar view about looking after yourself. despite the fact he's been awake for 24 hours. He does it within very controlled environments.
All for science.
Yeah, all the science behind it. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are really, really good for gamers. Your vitamin Bs, for example, are great for hand-eye coordination and brain function and brain cognitive thinking. And omega-3 fish oils, which are great for maintaining good brain function and vision, as well as being really good for your cardiovascular system. We obviously promote a well-balanced diet, and all of these things I sort of like mention to our teams and say, you know, if they need anything like that, then, you know, to ask. Because a lot of gamers, they stereotypically have a high caffeine intake, causes dehydration and cramps due to lactic acid and stuff like that. If they suffer from those things, then obviously we can help them reduce that, but still give them the vitamins and stuff that they sort of get synthesized from caffeine. Dietary areas, there's also like the physical activities. A lot of gamers end up suffering from carpal tunnel syndrome, an area that affects a lot of RTS gamers and rhythm gamers. But there's certain activities that you can do to help strengthen your carpal tunnel, to reduce the likelihood or effect, if you already have it, of carpal tunnel syndrome, which I'm able to offer the players as well.
Nice, and it's certainly a very important one if you want to make this out of a career out of it. And do you get a lot of input or questions in terms of that from players within EXG?
Yeah, a couple of League of Legends team players have mentioned that you know, they eat healthily and they try and make sure they get all of their sort of. I know a couple of them have mentioned possibly sending over what the sort of things that they eat normally. I know a couple of players sort of like suffer from insomnia due to caffeine and stuff like that.
It's certainly a very interesting topic and something that people should be more concerned about within esports industry. Certainly. Okay, let's switch to Neo. You guys mentioned previously about, you know, Gamers Platoon, your interaction with the sponsors and whatnot.
My job is like promoting the team. So as ENiGMA said, the Twitter and the Facebook, the social media marketing. So whilst everyone's gaming away, I get the lovely job of telling everyone what we're doing. And we stream on Own TV, so obviously we want people to be watching that. So I'm trying to drive people to go and watch our awesome teams play and get people interested in what we're doing.
Was it hard to find a sponsor for EXG initially, or?
Initially I'd looked at lots of the bigger companies, so people like SteelSeries that sponsor the big pro teams, and not really with the intention of going, okay, right, we're ready to take a sponsor now, because it was really early days and that'd be kind of silly. But I just sort of stumbled across Gamers Platoon and signed up, and it just kind of escalated from there, really. They seemed to like what we were doing and just gave us a lot of opportunities and support from that point.
I'm fairly intrigued about that system. I mean, what are the things that, as a team, as a gaming team, do you look for from a sponsor? What are the things that you are, okay, definitely this is something that this relationship could work? What are the things that you have to take into account?
For bigger teams, they kind of look, obviously I'm not speaking from experience here because we're still in the very beginnings.
Yes.
But I think for a lot of teams, they want that financial support so that their teams can get out there to the offline tournaments. Because, you know, if you're making your career gaming, you're not going to have much of an income to speak of. So you need that help to get to the tournaments and participate in what is your job. You know, there's the other aspects that a team needs, like promotion, which obviously if you have sponsors, they want to show off who they're sponsoring because that gives them the interest, but it's also getting your name out there as well. I'd say that it'd always be very important to represent yourself well when you are discussing who sponsors you, because you don't want to give the wrong impression of their company. So
Yes.
obviously being professional is very important.
But you touched a very good point, because most of the let's say incidents that sometimes happens, I don't know even if incident would be the right word, but something happened with this player from this team because he or she did this, or this caster, he or she said this or whatnot. It hinders that image, and everybody thinks, oh, it's something that people have to take into account, that they represent. If you're a member of a team, or if you're...
I think you sort of see that for any sport, really, with, say, football, for example. We always hear about this player's done that, and that's represented badly, but still the sport is incredibly popular. I think it's just something that goes with being publicized.
Well, and how about going through the different social web media, like Facebook, Twitter, and the interaction with the community? How has been going so far?
I think our most successful platform is probably Twitter. We've even picked up some of our players through there, just through chatting to people. I think what has worked really well for us is not approaching social media as Exodus as like a business or a group, but more as individuals, because allowing other gamers to see your personality and that you're just a gamer like them, I think really helps endear people to you. So I think that helps a lot. A business and more of a personality, the way to go.
Yeah, actually. And I have to say that since I started doing the podcast as well, I mean, Twitter has been a very useful tool. Let's go to Flames. What is it that you do within the team? What are you responsible for?
League of Legends division manager at Exodus. I'm really awake right now. So I'm essentially responsible for the teams, and as you mentioned just before, regardless of how professional these players are required to act at times, there is drama. There are personal feuds. There is all kinds of things going on in the head of a gamer that is very difficult to to manage in any way. So I essentially try to remain somewhat professional and keep communication up between the players, regardless of who hates who and who won't play with who, etc., etc. I'm also responsible for the recruitment at the moment. Obviously, right now we have 2 full EU West teams, which is very positive, but we're still recruiting for North American teams and Nordic and East teams, but no doubt those slots will fill up soon. Right now, I'm dealing with events in association with Gamers Platoon. However, ultimately, I'm hoping that we will secure the necessary sponsorship to begin hosting our own events. So ultimately, I should be bringing tournaments to our community and to the esports or League of Legends community as a whole.
Well, you mentioned the drama and whatnot, which is fine. I mean, it's something that happens and fairly common, as Neo mentioned as well, in any other kind of sports, and she's right. How has been your experience in that role? I mean, do you find it very taxing?
Not particularly. I have, as I said, quite an extensive history within competitive gaming and obviously dealing with competitive players now. So I've become used to the level of drama that tends to ensue at times. There are a lot of players who are very relaxed or more passive and honestly don't care what those around them are doing so long as they don't make mistakes that affect them. But there are certain players who simply refuse to play with other players that I know. I have requests sent to me like, yes, I would like to play, but there's no way I'll play with this player and this player because we have a history and I just can't be in a group with them, you know, it ends badly. So it's not much of a hindrance, but I do have to take certain things into consideration when forming teams and when dealing with the players.
What's your esports experience like? What's your background with it?
Yes. I played since a very young age, obviously just a form of entertainment, I suppose. It wasn't something I sought to do professionally or anything of that nature originally. During my high school years that I actually came across the title Battlefield 2, which I'm sure many of the listeners have probably put in several hundred hours to, possibly. I know I certainly did. I played that game for little over 2 years and reached quite a decent level. I wasn't deeply into the competitive scene of Battlefield 2. It was kind of the first title that I began to take seriously when I kind of began thinking about the effort, the energy, the investment, and the dedication that it takes to play a game professionally, and I started realizing exactly what it's all about. And from there, despite having the first-person shooter whore mentality of all MMOs are for terabads, I went on to play World of Warcraft and soon realized my mistake, because World of Warcraft is an incredible game. It puts all MMOs to shame. It's like the leader at this point in time as far as MMOs go, even though it's declined so much since vanilla Warcraft. It's still an incredible title. In Warcraft I played for little under 3 years, so I spent more time there than I spent in Battlefield 2. And that started out as a very small 10-man group, which was primarily comprised of friends. Ultimately, that group went on to merge with another group who were very similar, 10 friends interested in starting playing something competitively. And it was shortly after that merge that we realized, hold on a second, we're actually quite good at this. So we got it up to 25 members and we began raiding seriously. We got the schedule down. Everyone logged in every day for the set hours. And before you knew it, we were the best on the server. And we quickly progressed to top 300 worldwide. And considering that's out of millions of players, that's quite high ranking within the... So from there, I basically went on to university, where I studied game design also, like at college, and Neo and ENiGMA were also studying this course at the same university. And it was at this point that I decided to step down from WoW, because obviously balancing playing a game to that standard and also dealing with your studies and actually meeting deadlines is somewhat challenging. But it was shortly after I ended my university course somewhat early, after realizing that it was a somewhat pointless endeavor for myself. I decided to quit and go on educating myself, as opposed to wasting ludicrous amounts of money on a terrible education.
Right.
I much prefer teaching myself. And it was from that point, obviously, after kind of stepping down from WoW and the disbanding of the guild ultimately, that I decided to go into League of Legends. And after about 12 months, just over 12 months of playing League of Legends and following the competitive scene now, Exodus has sort of taken off, and everything's kind of kicking off, and here I am now trying to strive for perfection within League of Legends and see exactly how Exodus progresses and what we can offer the esports scene.
Well, for people that don't know, League of Legends is categorized as a MOBA game. How would you define that genre? I mean, what does MOBA stand for?
That's a multiplayer online battle arena. If anyone listening hasn't ever tried a game like Defense of the Ancients or League of Legends, it's essentially a hybrid of an MMORPG, a massively multiplayer online roleplay game, and a real-time strategy. You're combining the elements of having a single champion, a character if you like, which you are leveling and building items for, gaining gold, and this hero is kind of living out his journey. But it takes those elements from the MMO, but there isn't this extensive open world and PvE and PvP in the sense of raiding and dungeons and arenas. It works in the sense that it has an RTS map, the map of a real-time strategy with fog of war. It's all about vision and control of items within the map. It is a difficult thing to explain because the genre itself is so unique, but essentially you're looking at a square map with 3 columns or lanes, 1 cutting straight diagonally through the middle and 2 on the top and bottom, and then there is a jungle in between those lanes full of all kinds of neutral creeps. There is a base on either side, and the 2 teams are trying to push these lanes into the other team's base, whilst trying to secure these player versus environment objectives, such as buffs and neutral creeps or monsters which give experience and gold, etc. That they are trying to secure these objectives whilst denying the opponent these objectives, allowing themselves to build the advantage to win the team fight, the player versus player element of the game, to then go on to make the push or win the team fight, take the Baron being one of the neutral minions, and finish the game. It is difficult for me to describe, and I don't know if I'm putting the correct images in people's minds when I say these things, but that's as close as I can get. It's an MMO and an RTS coming together to create this whole new wonderful genre, very high skill, and no matter what your preference is, whether it's League, Dota, anything, Heroes of New Earth, you will surely thoroughly enjoy this genre if you are serious about gaming.
Yeah, yes. And actually, you just mentioned, the other games within the genre. Do you think that League of Legends within esports is the most popular one currently? Or do you see that there's a foreseeable change in that in the future? As, like, for example, Dota 2 is gonna be released soon. I mean, it's still in beta, I think.
Well, it's my personal. That's not true. Right now, League of Legends is the largest MOBA game. Actually, I can't say that because my experience with the original Dota isn't quite so in depth. But right now, it is the largest in the fact that its streams of the live events, the tournaments, have surpassed StarCraft 2, which was the previous industry leader, if you like, in that particular field. So now League of Legends is in fact receiving the larger quantity of viewers. It has a larger following, if you like, and it has now in fact, in such a short space of time, surpassed World of Warcraft in the number of active subscribers who play the game. So it's massive. Nothing could touch World of Warcraft for so many years, and then League of Legends just overtook it in such a short space of time that we really are seeing the birth of something incredible. Well, not the birth now, but the evolution, the continuing evolution of something incredible. And as for the future of MOBA games, I'm tempted to make the prediction that Dota 2 could well become the new sort of generally accepted esport as far as MOBA goes. We may begin to see de-emphasis in the area of LoL. HON already seems to be down a bit. I don't want to offend any HON players or anything, but it seems to be obvious from what we observe at the moment that it is the smaller of the franchises. So yeah, I definitely think Dota 2 could be the game to watch. Obviously, lots of returning Dota players. Dota is a lot more technical and hardcore, if you like, than League of Legends, which is somewhat more casual.
And you, as being the manager of the LoL division for EXG, do you have many teams within that division?
Right now, we have 2 full EU West teams who are currently playing as frequently as they can. That's 6 days a week at the moment for one of the teams, and I believe somewhat like 5, 6 when they can for the other team. And we also have some partially filled groups, essentially waiting lists for the North American League of Legends team and the Nordic and West League of Legends team at EXG. So we are still actively recruiting for those two teams, and we are still, of course, looking for substitutes, appropriate substitutes for the two current teams.
How's the situation with the other divisions? I mean, not League of Legends per se, but other games that you also have within the team, like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, perhaps StarCraft 2.
Well, we are striving to expand, but I believe ENiGMA will be able to fill you in slightly more detail than I can as to the current situation with the divisions.
We basically received such a high influx of applications for such a wide range of games so early on, whilst we were still looking for division managers for those other games, that we've actually put a lot of the other games on hold currently until we've secured trustworthy, focused division managers for those selected games. I believe once League of Legends has achieved the current open slots, once they're filled, me and Flames and Neo have discussed obviously moving on to the next game and reopening up the recruitments for those. And obviously responding to all the emails that we've received for those games. And I believe the next game will be StarCraft 2.
How does the hiring process happen for finding pro gamers for these teams?
Well, we haven't actually, like I just mentioned, we haven't actually had to scout for good gamers up until this point. We were actually, like I mentioned, we were just inundated with applications for various games. On a daily basis, I'll receive anything from 5 to 30 emails from single players and teams that are interested in joining the XG for various games. Some of which we have listed and some of which are completely new things that they're just prodding us, in effect, to find out if we'll possibly include it for them to represent us in. But when we're looking at promising players, we look at their past experiences and their accumulated accomplishments. Right. And based on that information, we can trial those players and we monitor them to see how they can progress within a competitive atmosphere. And our division managers, such as Flames, are then able to look at that progression, and using their knowledge of that game, they can make a sound judgment on their gaming skill level and see how far they would progress by using insight within that community, and make a sound judgment based on that.
Wow. No, it's quite an interesting screening process, I have to say.
Yeah.
And well, just as a joke, obviously, not that you guys do this, but I just also pictured in my mind that it goes through an interview, you sort of like look at the application form, you talk to the player, and then you send the player to Flames, and Flames just locks the player, he or she, within a dark room with a computer and says, "Go, solve this, survive survive this horde of minions for 10 minutes, and see how you do that." How you do that. Is it fairly easy to see someone that you identify as being having a promising future within esports? There is a pro gamer. This is a guy that is passionate about being a professional esports player.
It's not always the fastest process. Obviously, there are psychological trickery that certain gamers try to employ almost every hour of the day to ensure no one ever has a clue what they're thinking. It's like a permanent poker face. So some people are difficult to analyze, but I suppose the polar extreme is that there are certain players whose applications I can take a look at and whose performance I can witness, and I can simply say this person is highly experienced. I can see the years of deeply ingrained logic in this human brain over here, and they're certainly making some wise decisions. That's the kind of thing we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, some people don't even make it to Flames' screening process. When I get an email regarding League of Legends in particular, I ask them questions such as, you know, their current ranked levels, you know, their current ELO.
Yes.
And sometimes, I'm not going to mention any names, I don't want to embarrass anybody that has emailed, but there has been occasions where somebody has emailed back and said, what is ELO? And obviously they're people that just wouldn't, if they don't understand it and they're applying, then they're not ready for it yet. That's not to say that they're terrible. They might, once they figure it out, be good, but they're obviously not ready for that sort of environment yet, to be surrounded by people that are talking about that and are being competitive, and therefore they don't even make it through my very limited knowledge sort of based screening, and they don't even make it to even speak to Flames in regards to League of Legends.
I guess that it's, what you're saying is not only the history or the background. It might be very long or might be very short, but in terms of passion and knowledge towards what they're doing, if it's discernible or not, which is a wise thing to do, I guess.
Yeah, it's something that I know that me and Flames discussed very early on, that you can tell a lot about a gamer from the knowledge that they have. We've had a couple of gamers that are just really just lacked knowledge. Again, not mentioning any names, but one FPS player that played with Flames on Quake, he didn't listen to any advice that Flames was able to offer him, and just rage quit the game and said it was terrible, said that Quake was terrible. And when you have somebody that says Quake's terrible because they don't understand it, they're just not somebody who can approach competitive gaming at a good level.
Obviously, retention of knowledge is crucial. However, as you were saying, we take into consideration their current performance, not only their previous experiences or history. So if someone has a particularly keen ability to read a game and simply understand on the spot, in the moment, if you like, then fine. If that's how they think, then they can do such a thing. If they can do such a thing, and they are showing evidence of being able to make these snap decisions, if you like, correctly, then that's no problem as well. You could be brand new to League of Legends, but if you're good enough to play to a reasonable level, it doesn't cause any issue. Though, as I said, there are some applications which are somewhat breathtaking, even for myself.
How is the interaction with other gaming teams? Do you guys interact a lot with others?
One of the things that great things, I guess, it's not so much just a single thing. It's actually just something that was really great that attracted us to Gamers Platoon. There is an array of gaming teams. Some of them are casual, and there's a couple on there that approach it from a competitive level. And we've obviously spoken to players from those teams, as well as interacted with other teams on our social media places like, I believe Team Ownage, who are on Twitter, who, we've given a few shout outs to on our Twitter, and they've given us shout outs and stuff like that. There's sort of like a general interaction amongst each other, but we haven't yet arranged any scrims or anything with any other teams that play competitive as of yet.
What are your activities that you're currently working on at the moment?
Well, something that I can't forget to mention is, of course, the owned stream. That's own3d.tv/Exodus Gaming. And we have numerous players streaming various times. There's nothing quite set in stone yet as far as the schedule goes, so I can't give you an hour to tune in, but you can certainly tune into the Exodus Gaming channel and see who is playing. Our LoL players are frequently streaming matches, whether it's just solo or duo queue, or if they're even streaming ranked fives. Also, we have other players streaming other titles on occasion. Primarily it's LoL right now, and of course, myself, I stream primarily LoL, but I do stream a few other titles as well. Challenging games that take my fancy at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the streaming is not a massively exciting thing. It's somewhat entertaining if you want to tune in to some gameplay and continue exercising your mind as if you were playing, even whilst your hands are engaged otherwise, perhaps, or something of that nature. But the real deal, so to speak, right now is the League of Legends Gamers Platoon Cup, which is being brought to you by Gamers Platoon, our sponsors, in association with Exodus Team. And it will be streamed live via Xstream, EXG's streaming service or channel, and you will be able to tune in and watch the League of Legends Gamers Platoon Cup take place live over 5 days on Wednesday, the 11th of July, 2012. The teams will be playing for a grand prize of $1,000, with the two runners-up taking a exclusive GP title. Hopefully, we'll see a really good response, and not only for the teams or the players, but we're hoping that provides some entertaining matches for the fans of the game to tune in and start following these teams.
No, I'll be surely tuning in for that. How would you describe the esports scene within the United Kingdom or England? Is there something very lacking there?
The UK isn't lacking in good competitive gamers, but what it is lacking is the support for those potential pro gamers. I don't think we're any less skilled game-wise. It's just, as we've mentioned before, with the lack of support, a lot of the UK players end up in American teams. We do have Dignitas who pick up a lot of the UK players, but still, we don't really have the sort of support here that the players could benefit from.
That is a major flaw in the United Kingdom, is that people that are wanting to play competitively have to go abroad to fulfill their hopes and dreams of playing it as a sport. And often that means relocating away from family and friends, and even sometimes people that they play well with in practicing with. So sometimes it's just a serious lack of support, and it's an area that there's a lot of big companies within the United Kingdom, but none of them have yet to take gaming seriously as a sport enough to actually sponsor it. They don't really see it. They see it as something that their children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews do, in the house, playing on the Wii or whatnot. I know a lot of LAN cafes, a lot of places where you used to be able to go and hold LANs are now struggling.
What are you guys looking forward to growing as a team? Like, what are your more long point objectives?
Well, right now, obviously, we're aiming for the teams that are currently forming to settle down into a somewhat rigid structure, allowing those guys to continue their pursuits. And that will allow us to begin expanding and searching for teams for additional titles, as ENiGMA mentioned, StarCraft 2, and whatever other titles we may have in the pipeline. Yeah. So we're essentially just hoping to see a much wider spectrum of esports, as EXG is a multi-gaming organization. We are by no means limited to League of Legends, and we want to see growth. We want to see a good response from the competitive community, from gamers everywhere, and hopefully begin providing the community with events for them, for these players to compete, for them to do what they do. I believe ENiGMA has a few other points about the growth of EXG.
Yeah, once, as Flame said, once those League of Legends teams are structured, and Flames and myself and Neil are assured that they have gelled well together and they feel comfortable and have, gone through their practice routines and they're taking part in tournaments. On a side note, I know a lot of them are practicing heavily for the League of Legends Gamers Platoon Cup, as Flame mentioned earlier, as well as helping to host that event. We do have teams that are planning on taking part within it as well. We will then start looking for more sponsors to help give those players support.
I think securing those sponsors, as ENiGMA said, is a really important stage in the growth of EXG, because without that we can't, well, obviously we offer as much support as we possibly can, but those sponsors really add that little extra that you can offer your players. We don't just want to have our teams in online events, like obviously the LOL event which has been organised is fantastic, but to be able to send our players to offline events and get that extra exposure would be really, really good, and maybe even rub shoulders with some of the bigger teams. Maybe one day we'll organise our own offline tournament and get sponsors to help us with that.
How do people would get in touch with you, as people that are listening to this podcast and they're thinking seriously in endeavoring in esports, be it as a gamer or other roles? How do they get in touch and contact with you guys?
The best way, probably at the moment, for definite, is probably simply just through the Twitter, which is twitter.com/Exodus team. And obviously that will get picked up in, by either myself or Neo, more than likely Neo, as it's her.
There'll be a ninja lurking around.
Yes. And, a direct message or just a sort of like a shout out to us on there is a great way to get our attention. There's obviously also emails, which is obviously, Flames or ENiGMA or NeoNico at team-exg.com, which is the URL we're moving to within the next month, which obviously if you want to send us an email directly, then you can email that, and whoever you email will respond and let you know, or help answer any questions that people have for us, which is probably this. Yeah. Go on, Flames.
Sorry, I would just like to quickly state that that's F14M3Z at team-exg.com.
Yes.
Yes. And
NeoNico is N3ON3KO.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To make it more complicated.
Yes. Yeah, that's the first part of the screening process. There you go. If you can manage that, you're good to go. Do you guys have any shout-outs to people within esports, fans and whatnot?
Well, we'd obviously like to give a massive shout-out to all of our Exodus players. Grolog, Shiro, Irazco, Redius, Kiki93, Master Crane, Strategies, Aquazi, Peaches, Kremzy, Exia or Canthis, Game Guru, Zelka, Zahector, Stray Cat, Howling, Etam, and Moam. And obviously, gamersplatoon.com, Owned TV, and our local cyber cafe, which is at cyber cafe, for all of the support that they've given us and all of the help that they've given us to get to where we are at the moment. So yeah, all of those previously mentioned people and companies are all extremely awesome.
That being said, then thank you very much for your time. I'm really happy that we did this. I mean, getting the news that I was gonna interview you guys, I couldn't be more excited. And there's one thing that I've experienced so far doing the podcast within esports channel is that you always get to meet people that are passionate about what they're doing, and you certainly it's certainly noticeable and discernible, and this is not an exception to that case. I am really happy to see Exodus Gaming Team and having to meet you guys this way, although not personally, unfortunately, but it's always a pleasure to meet such a nice group of people.
Yeah, and it's likewise, it's always great to meet somebody such as yourself who is doing a fantastic job of supporting the esports community as a whole as well.
Well, you guys do the real work within esports. I just talk about it.
A most pleasant conversation, though.
Well, anyways, thank you guys, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of Nexus Podcast Esports Edition, and catch you guys next time.